Who do you think is the most powerful being in the MCU? That's always a tough question because our heroes and villains constantly level up while the franchise simultaneously introduces a ton of new all-powerful characters with every passing movie. And how exactly do you judge power? By pure strength? By ability? By intelligence? There's a lot of factors. So I've made a list ranking the most powerful MCU characters we've seen so far, and there's a lot I think you'll agree with, some I think you won't, but it's going to be fun to talk about. I've kept it to mostly main heroes and villains to keep it a bit more fair, so be warned. Okay, ready? Let's begin. Okay, someone had to be at the bottom of this list, but keep in mind that all these entries are super powerful. This is only a top 15 list, so just making it on here is a pretty big deal. Though yes, it does sorta hurt to put Spider-Man so low, mainly because I just think of Peter's sad puppy dog eyes and my heart hurts. But let's talk about Peter's power levels. Sometimes you have powerful brute force characters, other times you have agile, dexterous characters, but with Spidey, it's really the best of both worlds. He's incredibly quick and acrobatic, but his strength levels are off the charts, especially given his young age. Like, remember in Homecoming when he found his inner strength and lifted all that concrete and rubble off him? That was such a classic push yourself to do better moment where it looks like Spidey's strength is solely tied to how much he wants it. He can push himself to extreme levels when the chips are down, and he just needs to think about it and focus a bit more. That's probably why he's at the bottom of this list. He isn't naturally the strongest person in the world, but if he sets his mind to it, he probably could be. In a perfect world, Vision would have been much higher on this list. In the MCU, in theory, he's supposed to be a supercomputer with literally all the knowledge in the world placed inside a vibranium body and powered by one of the most powerful objects in the entire universe. That screams power right there. But the Vision we saw always felt a little hindered, didn't he? Like, remember when Eternals came out and they were saying, oh, Superman has arrived in the MCU with Icarus because he can fly, shoot beams out of his eyes, has super speed, is super strong, and is nearly indestructible? Well, guess what? Vision was already literally all of those things with the added benefit of being a supercomputer and having extra abilities like his phasing. But even though he was the literal most important final element in Infinity War, the movie decided to nerf him almost immediately by stabbing him so he couldn't use his full powers to their extent. Probably because if he could, he'd just cut Thanos in half with the Mind Stone and everything would have been over much quicker. So yeah, Vision should be much higher on this list, but due to what we've seen, he's near the bottom. But hey, if this was a list of most charming and charismatic synthezoids in the MCU, he'd definitely be at the top. I mentioned Icarus in the previous entry, so I might as well use this next spot to talk about all the Eternals. Yes, I'm grouping them all together because it's just a bit easier and allows for a bit more variety. If I make a list of the most powerful characters in the MCU, I don't want to see Icarus, Gilgamesh, Ajax, Druig, and Makari all hogging up the spaces. And this might seem like an overall low place for the Eternals, but I chalk that up to not really seeing yet how they compare to other heroes. We're constantly told how strong and powerful all the Eternals are, and I even remember someone saying before the movie came out that the Eternals could have beaten Thanos easily and stuff like that, but are they? All we ever really do is see the Eternals fight deviants, and honestly, those creatures don't seem all that different than the other beasts and monsters the other MCU heroes have faced. Like, I think Iron Man and Captain America could take down a deviant with relative ease, don't you think? And the fact that all the Eternals were specifically made and yet all have different powers stops any one of them from coming out on top. Like, seriously, if I was a Celestial who made the Eternals, why would I give one of them super speed, one of them strength, one of them the ability to make technology, and one of them the ability to control people's minds? Like, just give them all those powers, right? Okay, Iron Man's inclusion on this list obviously isn't because of his pure physical shape. Like, sure, Robert Downey Jr. seemed to be getting in better shape literally every time he played Iron Man, but that's an observation for a different video. Iron Man is here though because this is a list of most powerful characters, and knowledge and brain power definitely can give anyone power. The fact that Tony is one of the smartest people in the entire universe gives him the ability to constantly upgrade his tech to new, almost magical heights. Like, say you pitch Tony Stark against Hulk. Yes, Hulk is more powerful, but Tony can just go home and invent a suit or a weapon or some device that would make him be able to beat the Hulk. It's under those guidelines that Tony earns a spot on this list. I think if Tony was still around in a few more movies, he probably would have ranked higher on this list, as he would have invented some type of multiversal portal gun that destroys other universes or something like that. That sounds like a Tony thing to do, right? Loki is an Asgardian warrior, and even though he's clearly outmatched by his brother and most other warriors, it's clear that Loki knows how to fight. Yes, his punches won't send you to the moon or anything, but he can still knock you out pretty easily. I mean, his weight sheet says he clocks in at 525 pounds. That's pure Asgardian bulk right there. But what Loki lacks in pure physical strength, he makes up for in magic. His illusions can range from super minor annoyances that trick Thor to using his magic to move entire buildings that are about to fall on him. And Loki's magic continues to grow even now. In the Loki TV show, Loki unlocked a new ability when he figured out that he could enchant people, and along with Sylvie's help, who is just another Loki variant, the two were able to enchant Alioth, an uber-powerful living tempest that destroys anything it touches. If Loki can enchant that, it makes him kind of a big deal. So overall, Loki is the sneaky kind of powerful, and that's sometimes better than the in-your-face kind of power, don't you think? It allows you to operate more from the shadows, but still do an incredible amount of damage. Captain Marvel was hyped up as the MCU's big gun. When Thanos had snapped away half the universe, Nick Fury sent out a distress call to Carol Danvers, immediately sparking a lot of conversation about why Fury didn't bother to try beeping her when things like aliens invaded New York or when Ultron threatened to wipe out all of humanity. But the fact that he waited until a truly universe-ending threat made it appear that Captain Marvel was the key to everything. And in a lot of ways, she lived up to the hype. Her solo movie establishes that she's one of the most powerful people in the universe, but the fact that she's so powerful and revered makes it so she's spread thin across the universe and can't be included in most little battles because she should technically be able to end them instantly. That feels like the reason she was saved until the very end of Endgame, where she rockets through Sanctuary 2 and nearly beats Thanos even with all the Infinity Stones. Yes, Captain Marvel is powerful, but the reason she doesn't rank higher is because we've been mostly told how powerful she is and only seen her in small doses to really gauge her strength levels. This isn't a joke. I truly believe Ant-Man is more powerful than Captain Marvel, than Loki, than the Eternals, than anyone who's come before on this list. Everyone underestimates being able to shrink and grow to extreme sizes, as it doesn't quite seem like the coolest power out of all of them. But look what it could do in evil hands. In the What If episode, where Hank Pym goes a little nuts and turns evil, he successfully takes out Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, all by just being able to shrink down to an almost invisible size. Yes, Scott Lang is a bit of a doofus, but imagine the Ant-Man powers in a super assassin's hands. Then their power would be almost unmatched. And that's not even including how shrinking down is key to the quantum realm, which is the foundation for time travel and looks to be an important element in the growing multiverse. If Kang the Conqueror showing up in Ant-Man Quantumania is any indication. Yeah, don't mess with Ant-Man, okay? He could have beaten Thanos, you know, if he was willing to get a little dirty. Okay, now we're kicking things into high gear. We're entering the back half of the list where a lot of these rankings are subjective. I think everyone going forward could have a claim to a top spot in terms of most powerful characters in the MCU. But next up is Thor. If Thor was making this list, he'd be at the top, and there's certainly a case for it. I mean, I don't see anyone else restarting a literal star with his own body in order to forge a Thanos-stopping weapon, do you? Throughout the MCU, Thor has shown amazing feats of power and strength, but I think I have a good reason for putting him so low. It's because he's in a transition phase right now. Infinity War and Endgame basically blew up Thor's expected character trajectory in terms of being King of Asgard and set him off to find a new passion in life as he goes on space adventures. Ragnarok had Thor realize that the true core of his power comes from within rather than his hammer, and it helps lay the groundwork for Thor to discover untapped power he never knew he had. Thor can keep growing in terms of power, which is amazing given he's already oozing power out of every orifice. In the MCU, would you rather be someone who can punch holes in people with a flick of your wrist, or would you want mastery of the mystic arts? I mean, the answer should be pretty clear. If you're the strongest being in existence, it really doesn't mean much when some wizard can just trap you in an alternate pocket dimension, or cast a spell that turns you into a sausage or something, right? Doctor Strange is the Sorcerer Supreme, and that comes with almost unimaginable power. He can practically make anything happen in terms of creation, projection, teleportation, and strength. In Thor Ragnarok, when Thor visits Strange, you can tell how easy it is for Strange to rattle Thor and disorient him with magic. Yeah, if Thor landed one normal punch on Strange, he'd probably be done for, but Strange's magic levels make that almost impossible. Remember how in the Avengers movie, Loki was this huge threat that almost wiped out New York? And then remember in Thor Ragnarok when all Doctor Strange did was open a portal at Loki's feet and keep him falling for 30 minutes? That would have ended that Avengers movie much faster. He also went toe-to-toe with Thanos when the Mad Titan had a bunch of Infinity Stones, so yeah, Strange is super powerful. Ultron technically should be impossible to beat. He's a sentient AI program that can hack any machine ever or be practically anywhere at once thanks to technology. And if you manage to destroy him, the robot would just reveal that he had downloaded a piece of himself somewhere else and would simply rebuild. You can't reason with an AI program, and you can't really manipulate or trick it. It's just an unrelenting force that you can only subdue for a short amount of time. Ultron in the MCU very nearly wiped out all humanity and made it look relatively easy. He was only beaten because of Vision, and we're all just lucky that the Avengers were able to capture Vision and wake him up before Ultron uploaded himself to the new Mind Stone-fueled body. What If showed us that if Ultron did get Vision's body, it would have led him to collecting all the Infinity Stones, conquering the galaxy, and then growing so smart that he could sense other universes and set out to destroy those too. A grand display of power if I ever saw one, don't you think? The Hulk should be unbeatable. He's an uncontrollable rage monster who only gets stronger the angrier he gets. His strength literally has no limits. If someone like Thanos beats him up for a long time and doesn't end the fight in like 15 seconds, then Hulk will only get more mad and eventually overpower Thanos. I don't know much about gamma radiation, but I know it feels like the strongest form of radiation in the Marvel Universe. Because of Hulk's special connection with gamma radiation, it allowed him to use the Infinity Gauntlet to bring back half the universe and basically walk away with one dud arm. That's incredible right there. I mean, there's a reason his name is the Incredible Hulk. The only reason that Hulk isn't higher on this list is because lately, the MCU has gotten rid of the one thing that makes Hulk the strongest, his anger. Professor Hulk combined Hulk's body with Banner's brain, and while that's fine in theory, I guess, it actually seems to make Hulk weaker. Here's to hoping the real Hulk comes back at some point soon. Thanos is inevitable. He's the big bad of the first three phases of the MCU and successfully enacted his plan to gather all the Infinity Stones and wipe out half the universe. That takes a lot of power right there. And while Thanos' pure power levels are a little questionable, as sometimes he looks like he can toss around our heroes like they were flies, while other times he seems equal in strength to someone like Captain America, I would say his willpower makes him one of the most powerful beings in the universe. While not blessed with all-powerful abilities, he's still way above average. And you couple that with his drive to scrounge the universe looking for all the Infinity Stones, conquering anyone who gets in his way, and you got yourself quite the powerhouse. He literally sacrificed the only thing in the universe he loved in order to complete his mission, and there's not a lot of villains who would do that. Scarlet Witch started her time in the MCU as a mutant. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean as a miracle, since we couldn't say the word mutant at the time. And it looked like her powers were very ill-defined. Maria Hill just called her weird and we moved on. She looked relatively simple in just being able to move stuff with her mind, shoot red blasts, and mind control certain individuals. Normally this would place her near the bottom of this list, but thanks to WandaVision, she's now shot her way near the top. Her own Disney Plus show unlocked something within Wanda where now she's learning to harness the chaos magic inside her. It's so powerful that she can pretty easily rewrite all of reality itself. The extent of her powers were epic, and we didn't even get to see them to their full extent since WandaVision was a Disney Plus show and not a $200 million movie. But we should all be in awe and maybe a little terrified at what Wanda can do now that she's studying the Darkhold and on a mission to save her children. Nothing is off limits to her now in terms of ability, and she's evolved way past the point of just using her powers to throw cars at Iron Man. The Celestials deserve a shout out even though there's so much we don't know about their power levels, so maybe this one is a bit of an honorable mention. The Eternals opened up their mythology a bit more and confirmed that they're the cornerstones of the universe. They're technically the oldest beings in existence and are responsible for all the life everywhere. Yeah, they mess up from time to time in terms of planning with things like the creation of the Deviants or not giving the Eternals all the same powers, but they're still a huge deal. They're the most powerful beings in our universe. Notice how I said our universe for the last one? It's because technically there's one being that I consider more powerful than the Celestials, and he sits in a different dimension. Yes, it's Dormammu, the primordial entity who wields apocalyptic levels of supernatural power and rules over the dark dimension, takes the top spot on this list. I think anyone else on this list who has to go up against Dormammu in a fight would lose almost instantly. Doctor Strange only beat Dormammu by using the Time Stone to trap him in a time loop for all eternity until Dormammu got so annoyed that he agreed to leave Earth alone. Yeah, basically the only way to win against him is to bargain with him and pray to high heavens that he keeps his word. His goal is to destroy every universe in existence and spread darkness, and it seems like he definitely has the ability to do it. If Dormammu broke his word and came back to Earth knowing the Time Stone was gone, do you think our heroes could stop him? I don't know. That's the big question right there. Yeah, I know there are some heavy-hitting side characters I left off this list, but I wanted to keep it streamlined. But who do you think is more powerful between the Ancient One and Odin? Now that's a fight I want to see sometime in the future. Make it happen, MCU.